how much freedom has been taken away because of terrorist attacks? Well, what if not every one, but what if many of those terrorist attacks were actually not what they appeared to be, but were actually orchestrated by the very system that wants to change society? This create the problem, offer the solution is happening all the time. And that links in with something else I mentioned, the totalitarian tiptoe. You're at A and you want to take the world to Z. You know, if you go in too big a leap towards Z, the change is going to be so dramatic that people are going to look up from the game show or the sport and say, what's happening? So you go as far as you can, as fast as you can, but not so far that you alert too many people to the fact that there's a pattern here. You have a problem reaction solution and you take a step, deleting freedom, more surveillance, more control. Then you have another problem reaction solution and you do it more and you do it more and you do it more. If you look at the European Union, it's a classic totalitarian tiptoe. We were told we were joining a free trade area called the Common Market, good for jobs. Okay, that's where it starts. But that's not where it was planned to finish. That was just the foot in the door. And then you have more and more centralization of power. Well, if we centralize power, it would be more efficient. Over this and over that and all that stuff. And then it goes on and on and on until we've reached the point now where Europe is controlled in fine detail by a handful of bureaucrats that the vast majority of people in Europe couldn't even name. And I had to smile the other month. In my books in the 1990s, I said the plan is for a European army, an EU army. Oh, load of rubbish. We've got NATO. Ridiculous. Now, last few months, Merkel and in Germany and Macron in France, who are just puppets of this whole thing, like May and Trump and all of them, they've come out and said, we've had an idea. We've had an idea. We should have a European army. What do you mean you've had an idea? How did I know about it in 1993?
How much stuff have you said, David, that's came through? Does it scare you, the stuff that has came through, and go, I fucking told you so? Do you sit back and go, told yous?
No, I don't. What I do is I point out when things happen that I said them, but I don't way back. But I don't say, see, told you so. I do it for a reason, and this reason. If I knew about it 20, 30 years ago, it's not random, is it? Mm-hmm. It's not just happening. It's planned. Otherwise, I couldn't have known it. How could Orwell have known it? How could Huxley have known it? And these other people that I quote, how could they have known it? How could someone I quote in the books, a Rockefeller, big-time Rockefeller insider, have described the internet that was coming in 1969? How could he have done that? How could he have said in 1969, we are going to make boys and girls the same? How would he have known that? Because there's a plan, and it's projected much further ahead than people
realize. The
realize.
plan for the people controlling the world maybe are 100 years ahead, 200 years ahead.
Yeah, because it's another big story. Once you go off into another force that's not human, their timeline and their projections are not the same that we live in, where we, if you're going down a river on a canoe, you see as far as the next turn in the river. But what if there's a force that can see the whole river from start to finish? Then they have a completely different timeline and a completely different ability to project the future. How did George Orwell know about smart TVs? Smart TVs, and we're only seeing Mark 1, 2, 3 at the moment, not where they're planned to go. They have cameras in them and microphones in them that can film you in your front room and record your conversations in your front room. Well, it's admitted. Somebody found them and then they had to admit that it was true. In 1984, which came out in 1948, George Orwell was talking about in the 1984 society that there were telescreens in every home, and the telescreens were constantly filming you.
But Big Brother's watching.
Big Brother's watching. So, because it's projected long into the future, if you can access that, either because you're an insider or 30 years of bloody research full time, then you can predict the future. Because the simple thing is, if nothing intervenes to stop that process unfolding, that will happen. So you can predict the future. The whole point of what I do is to alert enough people eventually to all these things that there is an intervention and it is stopped, because a few people, and it is a few in full knowledge in the shadows, cannot manipulate and direct the lives of 7.7 billion because they don't have the numbers. To do it, they have to manipulate the perceptions of the population, which becomes the behavior of the population. Thus, the population behaves in a way that the few can control the many. And the key factor above all other factors is to keep that target population in complete ignorance of what you're doing. And so the more that you can uncover it and communicate it, and people become aware that this is happening, and thus events in the world are happening because of this and not randomly, the more chance there is of an intervention and the population saying, we're not having it.
The people you've spoke out against, David, are the most powerful people in the world. Do you ever get scared that they'll take away your life, that they'll put a hit out on you, or they'll try and shut you up? Because they've tried so many times to shut you up, they've now banned you from Australia.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that, shit, I'm in danger here? Have you ever felt your life in danger from the higher powers and the people who control the world?
Never crosses my mind.
No?
I mean, that might be hard for people to believe, but it's true. It never crosses my mind. And for this reason, A, we're more powerful when we take our power back than ever we believe we are. And, you know, I look on these people as pathetic little boys in short trousers, little boys and girls in short trousers, because what kind of psychopathic insanity does it take to want to impose your will over a vast population of people? I mean, it's pathetic. They are pathetic. I'm going to be frightened of them. Are you having a laugh? No way. And the other point is this. Once you start self-identifying with being consciousness, that's my eternal state, your eternal state, everyone's eternal state. Consciousness, a state of awareness. Well, whether it's in this body, it'll be out of this body eventually anyway at some point. Whether it's in this body or not in this body is almost irrelevant, because it's always a state of consciousness having an experience of some kind. So the worst that can happen to me is that I leave this body, right? And I will eventually anyway. I don't want to stay here forever, my God. I mean, you can have too much of a good thing, can't you? So it never crosses my mind. If you're taken out, you're taken out. But you're taken out trying to do the right thing. And
Which takes courage.
Well,
do you think now, David?
Well, courage is overcoming fear, which is a really powerful thing, courage overcoming fear. When you let go of fear, you don't need courage, you just do it. It's not like, you know, if I say, I've just written a book, I've just finished it. It's going to be probably the most controversial book, certainly given current times, probably going to be one of the most controversial books ever written. And so I know what's coming with it, but I don't fear it.
You're used to it?
I don't fear it because I'm putting out what I believe to be right, and I don't need courage to put it out, because I don't fear putting it out, because I don't fear the reaction. The reaction is what it is.
So you react to it?
Yeah, and a lot of people are going to read it and go, "Thank God, someone's saying it at last." And the system's going to say, "Ban him, condemn him." Couldn't get less.
Do you think they're doing the same thing with Jim Carrey now that they did with you 30 years ago? Try to ridicule him and call him crazy and say all the bad shit towards him because he's kind of had a spiritual awakening. He wants to stay away from the media and he's in the woods and just try to heal himself and get away from the false shit that he was involved in for so long.
Well, I spent an evening with Jim Carrey actually at his home with my son Jamie some years ago when I was in LA, and we had a very interesting chat. And again, Jim Carrey's had an experience similar to me, where basically the bubble popped and the veil lifted, And it can be a challenging time because suddenly you're perceiving another reality that's so different to the one you've been perceiving before. And of course, when you start talking about it, for reasons we've discussed, you're going to get ridiculed by the mainstream. The trick is not to care. And from what I've seen of Jim, he don't care. And, people just thought, look at the range of things you perceive. Is that really the limit of what there is to perceive? Is that really the limit of what there is to know? Is that the limit of ways of seeing the subjects you have views about? Well, of course not. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction. Anybody's views are a tiny fraction of possibility. So why aren't we exploring all possibility? Not that you come across information and just because you come across it, oh, that's true, then I'll believe that now. No, you question it, you process it, you come to conclusions about it. But it's very simple, and history shows us this. Systematically reducing the amount of information, views, and diversity of information and views available to people never ends up well. It never turns out good. It always turns out bad for humanity. Because you look at any tyranny, fascist tyranny, communist tyranny, whatever it is, whenever they get power, they want to destroy all alternative information and view that challenges what they want people to believe. Every time. So whenever you're in a situation where the free flow of information and view and opinion is being censored, you are in a tyranny. And what humanity has allowed itself, not everybody, of course, but great numbers, especially the political correctness group is they've allowed themselves to become a tyranny while claiming to be anti-tyranny.